10 spine-chilling cemetery tales from Mexico, discover the sinister truths of the cursed dead. The air trembled with a low hum, a whisper that made the hairs on the back of Carla's neck prickle. Maplewood was supposed to be a fresh start for her and Sophie, but an unholy chill had settled in since they arrived. The house, with its peeling paint and cracked windows, held on to secrets that the neighbors seemed eager to share but only in muted tones over cups of coffee and awkward glances. They spoke of the cemetery, where restless spirits twisted in their graves, thirsting for revenge or simply the chance to drag the living into their cursed realm. As her daughter played out back, imagining adventures in the wilds of the mysterious cemetery hidden on the town's edges, Carla couldn't shake the feeling that their inherited home had come with strings attached. The laughter that drifted through the open window fell flat against the morose backdrop of whispered folklore. She reassured herself it was just an old cemetery like any other, filled with headstones and history, tales of generational battles forgotten in time. But deep down, something felt wrong, like a shadow lurking behind a familiar face. Days turned into a blur of settling in and adjusting to life in a home that didn't feel like hers. The neighborhood's gossip echoed louder than her thoughts. Children went missing around the cursed graves. Rumors suggested their disappearance tied into sinister happenings, things that decayed just as much as the dying flora that surrounded the cemetery. But it couldn't be true, right? Then Sophie began talking about Diego, her new friend. He wanted to show Sophie how to dig deeper into their family's past. "Mom, he says there's so much we don't know." Sophie called out, her voice beaming in a way that sent a chill racing up Carla's spine. "He wants us to find the treasure." Carla chuckled nervously, brushing off her daughter's imagination. Later that night, thunder rumbled ominously, shaking their very bones. The living room carried a warm glow, yet the flickering lights cast sinister shadows that danced around them. Carla moved about, her heart steady, her mind wavering. But when she turned to check on Sophie, panic gripped her heart. The house seemed to breathe, squeezing her chest tighter as she called out, her voice slicing through stillness, but met only with silence. Where could she be? She muttered, dread pooling in her stomach. As she stepped into the heavy rain, the air tasted of metal, her pulse thrumming in her ears. Neighbors stood by, eyes averted, whispers growing louder. Their gazes spoke of distrust. Calling the police only made things worse. They promised to help, but with every ring, it felt like climbing into a deeper pit of despair. As the storm raged and Carla's desperation mounted like the waves crashing against the shore, pieces began to fall into place. Unruly threads connected her father to the dark legacy of Maplewood, whispers from neighbors turned ominous, revealing children drawn into the grips of the cemetery's mystique. Carla's chest tightened. Could those flickering lights in the distance hold a darker truth? With a violent shiver of dread coursing through her veins, she realized, the cemetery wasn't just a resting place for the dead, it might be a lure for the living. What truly lay beneath the grave markers that loomed like sentinels? She moved toward the cemetery, the shadows coiling around her, her heart pounding in sync with the sinister secrets buried deep within. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tread carefully, she thought, stepping closer to the ancient trees that veiled the entrance. The ground pulsed beneath her feet, as if the earth itself breathed in anticipation. A rustling nearby yanked her attention, and a hard truth crashed over her: the real bargain had yet to be made. Carla stepped into the cemetery, her breath coming in shallow gasps as she crossed the threshold. The wind howled like a specter trapped between worlds, and her heart raced, each beat echoing like a warning drum. The trees loomed, their gnarled branches reaching like skeletal arms, threatening to ensnare her. She squinted through the rain, trying to find any sign of Sophie, fighting against the growing anxiety that clawed at her throat. "Diego!" she called, her voice trembling. Sophie. The names echoed, swallowed by the darkness surrounding her. The headstones stood as eerie sentinels, their inscriptions worn and faded. Each name etched into the cold stone felt like a ghostly reminder of lives lost, tales untold. She wandered, the mud sucking at her shoes, trying to ignore the dread coursing through her veins. What was it about this place? Why did the air feel so thick, almost electric? It felt alive, but not in the way one would hope. Then in the distance a flicker of a light caught her eye, dancing like a will-o'-the-wisp amidst the gloom. Against her better judgment, she moved towards it. The shadows shifted around her, as if the cemetery were whispering, urging her to turn back. A low rumble of laughter rose through the air. It was familiar yet sinister. It crept under her skin and gripped her mind. "Mom!" It was Sophie's voice, clear yet distant. Carla's heart leapt, but confusion filled her as she rushed forward. "Sophie! Where are you?" "Over here." The voice was now muffled, echoing from beyond a cluster of ancient graves. With newfound determination, Carla pushed through the underbrush. The light flickered again, illuminating the area for just a brief moment, revealing a circle of children. They danced in a strange rhythm, moving in sync as though part of some macabre play. And in the center, there was Sophie, her laughter ringing sweetly, sound mingling with the wind. Panic gripped Carla's heart as she watched the scene unfold. "What are you doing? Come back!" she shouted. But the children didn't acknowledge her. They seemed entranced, focusing only on the strange flickering light that enveloped them like a shroud. As she rushed closer, the scene shifted. The laughter became unsettling, a distorted echo that twisted her stomach. The moment she approached the circle, the children froze, their heads turning in unison. Their eyes glinted with something dark and unknowable. "Join us," Sophie said, her voice dulcet yet hollow. "Diego says it's fun here." "Fun?" Carla echoed, dread seeping into her core. "What have you done? You need to come home." But the little girl's innocent smile faded, replaced with an expression of eerie calm. "Mom, it's safe here. The dead are fun. They want to play." Each word fell like a stone, each syllable echoing through the graveyard. The trees shook with a whisper, shadows darting from grave to grave. Carla felt a crushing weight of hopelessness as she tried to reach her daughter, but an invisible barrier seemed to hold her back, shackled by fear and confusion. "What does that mean, Sophie? You need to come back with me." The flickering light dimmed, shadows swallowing her daughter's face. Yet, the circle began to sway rhythmically once more, and the children resumed their haunting dance, oblivious to the anguish flooding Carla's heart. Her mind raced, frantically searching for answers. What had she unleashed? What bargain had she interrupted? But all she could focus on was Sophie, trapped among the lost spirits of the graveyard. As dark laughter echoed around her and desperation clawed at her throat, she realized one chilling truth: she was not alone. The shadowy figures began to emerge from the darkness, forming a chaotic mass as they moved toward her, compelling and terrifying. "Get away from her!" Carla screamed, bracing herself for a confrontation she wasn't prepared for. Shadows reached out, cold and unyielding. Terror gripped her as she stood against the encroaching darkness. What would it take to save her daughter from the sinister ties binding her to this place? As the shadows tightened around her, one question blared within her mind: could she really save Sophie, or would she become yet another spirit trapped in this haunted realm? The darkness swirled, and the graveyard's laughter grew louder, drowning out her thoughts as the boundary between the living and the dead began to blur. The shadows thickened, twisting into forms that shimmered just out of reach, flickering like dying embers. They hummed and whispered, their sound carrying ancient secrets that chilled Carla to the bone. It felt as if she had stepped into a realm where time unraveled, where every heartbeat slowed and every thought was drowned in dark laughter. "Mom, play with us," Sophie beckoned, her voice now mingled with the other children's, a siren call that tugged at Carla's sanity. "No. You need to come with me." Carla's voice cracked, desperation forcing her to shove through the apprehensive grip of the shadows. She lunged toward the circle, but something icy pressed against her chest, holding her back, as if the very air conspired to keep her from her daughter. The children's faces morphed in the flickering light, shadows rolling over their features, distorting their joyous expressions into something grotesque. Carla could barely discern their eyes. They were sunken and hollow, wells of darkness that radiated a chilling hunger. A cold tremor coursed through her spine as she struggled against the invisible hold. "Join us, Mom." Sophie's voice turned sultry, the playfulness gone. "Diego said it would be fun forever." "Diego?" Carla gasped, piecing together the fragments of fear. Who was this Diego? Invisible threads pulling Sophie deeper into the shadows. What had she gotten her daughter into? Suddenly, the children began to chant, their voices woven together in a hair-raising chorus. The words escaped her comprehension, yet she felt their sinister pull wrapping around her mind like a vice. Each breath she took seemed to thicken the air, wrapped in the weight of unholy intentions. "Leave her alone!" she cried out, her voice piercing through the veil of sound. But it was drowned out by the cacophony that rose around her, a shrieking lament that ignited the ground beneath her feet. The world teetered on the edge of something unspeakable. Carla willed herself to push through the unseen wall. With a surge of adrenaline, she launched forward, the forces trying to restrain her flickering like candle flames in a storm. Her hands grasped at Sophie's outstretched arm, feeling the warmth of her child's skin, but it felt eerily cold, as though it belonged to someone else. The circle flickered, blurring the boundary between reality and nightmare. In that fleeting moment, Carla glimpsed the truth. The children danced, not for joy but as servants to a darker force, trapped in eternal play. Then, with a deafening crack, the light burst into darkness. A weight pressed against Carla, her breath catching in her throat. Time warped. She spun, catching a last glimpse of her daughter's face contorted with uncertainty, but a deep darkness snuffed out the light between them. She gasped, adrenaline coursing through her veins as the laughter crescendoed into a manic frenzy, the shadows merging into a monstrous entity with 1,000 eyes, all focused on her. Carla's heart raced, each thud resonating with the dread clenching her gut. "Join us," the chorus echoed from lips twisted into bone-white smiles, hungry for her essence. As tendrils shot toward her, she felt the cold creep beneath her skin, want to pull her into that dance of despair. In a final bid for survival, she twisted the fear into resolve. "I'm not afraid of you," she yelled, and in that moment of defiance, the shadows recoiled, the laughter faltering. But it didn't stop. It only grew louder, more chaotic. "Run!" A whisper slithered through her mind, fraying the edges of her sanity. The darkness surged again, and she could feel the weight of the cemetery pressing down, beckoning her into the grave of forgotten souls. What if it was already too late? Would she and Sophie be lost to the shadows, bound to the secrets held within this cursed ground? The cold tendrils surged closer, her breath quickening as she fought against them. There had to be a way to save Sophie. But how? With blood pounding in her ears, Carla made her choice. She would fight back against the darkness, no matter the cost. Would she shatter the curse before it consumed them both, or would the grave claim another haunted spirit? As the shadows lunged, she grasped onto her fading light, desperation fueling her resolve. But just before she could react, an echoing voice sliced through the chaos, bone-chilling and ancient, whispering the next truth that would change everything. "What will you sacrifice to retrieve your daughter from the depths?" Carla struggled to gather her thoughts, the chilling proposal reverberating in her mind like a ghost's lament. What would she sacrifice? The shadows writhed hungrily, forming grotesque shapes that danced just outside her reach, tempting her with visions of despair. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to run, to save herself. But nothing mattered without Sophie. "Mom!" Sophie's voice cut through the fog. A plea wrapped in the twisted echoes of the other children. It filled Carla's heart with warmth, but it was tainted, infected by the shadows lurking everywhere. Could she trust it? Could she trust her daughter, or was it the darkness deceiving her? Nothing, I'll sacrifice nothing. She shouted defiantly into the dark void, her voice shaking. But even as she said it, doubts gnawed at her resolve. What if she had to lose something to save Sophie? What if the only way out of this nightmare was to confront the darkest corners of her soul? Then suffer, the shadows hissed in unison, their voices dripping with venomous glee. The ground trembled as the spectral forms pulsed like living oil, swirling closer. Around her, the graveyard had changed, gravestones like jagged teeth reached out to snatch her thoughts and drag them down. The air turned thick and oppressive, wrapping her in a suffocating embrace. "Stop!" Carla screamed, clutching her head as the whispers morphed into piercing shrieks. They stung her ears, clawing at her sanity. She stumbled backward, uncertainty flooding her veins. The children, or whatever they had become, circled closer, revealing sunken cheeks and hollow eyes that bore no semblance of innocence. They were lost souls craving something deeper than mere play. "Join us, take her place." Sophie's voice slipped into the meld of haunting calls, a sinister transformation that froze bile in Carla's throat. "No!" she yelled, shaking her head as tears streamed down her face. "I won't trade my life for yours, Sophie." "You have to." Suddenly, the tendrils lunged forward, wrapping around her wrists and ankles like a vice. Carla gasped as the chill seeped deep into her bones, robbing her of warmth and will. Shadows spooled into her, feeding on her fear and doubt, drowning her with the weight of eternity. "Sacrifice something." The voice slithered through the chaos, dense and intoxicating. "What will it be?" A glimpse of Sophie laughing, carefree, lit up in her mind. It ignited a fire within her chest. "No!" she screamed, pushing against the darkness. "I won't choose. I'll find another way." But the shadows only grinned wider, the bone-white smiles revealing rows of jagged teeth. They throbbed with hunger, bloodlust pulsing in a mocking rhythm that matched her heart's frantic tempo. Each frantic beat resonated with her doubt, her old grief, and the memories of what she had already lost. That I in the heart of despair, a voice sprang forth from her memories, a distant echo of her late husband. "Love is the sacrifice, Carla. Always." And it felt true. Here, in this nightmarish realm, what was more potent than love? Was it enough to save Sophie? Or would it just lead her deeper into the abyss? Do it. Love is the price. The shadows hissed that as the abyss of uncertainty beckoned, Carla's heart surged with fierce determination, overriding the cold dread. "I will choose love," she declared with everything she had left. The laughter shrieked in a frenzy, but amid the chaos, there was a fleeting flicker of hope. The shadows recoiled, if only for a moment, giving her the breath she needed to think. Could love truly break the curse? If she was willing to offer her heart to save her daughter, would it be enough? Yet beneath the surface of her resolve lay questions that begged answers. What if it meant losing everything? As the shadows reformed, shifting like smoke, Carla faced the swirling horror with defiance anew. "I will fight for you, Sophie. I won't let go." The shadows twisted, snarling and lunging, threatening to drag her down into the abyss. But she was ready to confront them. Would her love be enough to cut through the shadowy veil? Only time will tell. The relentless darkness grinned, gearing up for their ultimate confrontation as they surged toward her. In a heartbeat, Carla understood, sacrifice was merely a part of the journey, and she was only just beginning to unravel what must be given to save them both. The shadows surged forward, a tidal wave of terror ready to engulf her. Carla steadied herself, heart hammering in her chest as she braced for the onslaught. She could feel the tendrils tugging at her, pulling her closer to the maw of despair. But she wasn't going to give in, not now, not when Sophie was so close yet so far. "Let her go," she shouted, her voice hoarse and desperate. The shadows paused, a flicker of hesitation passing through their grotesque forms. In that brief moment, Carla seized her chance, her instincts screaming for action. Fueled by an unnatural drive, she sprang forward. "Stop!" Carla yelled, forcing the words from her trembling lips. Each syllable was a spell, a barrier against the creeping darkness. You don't own me. I am more than your prey. The shadows snarled, a cacophony of rage vibrating through the graveyard. They writhed and twisted, transforming into more horrific shapes, long, sinewy limbs and faces so distorted they resembled 1,000 nightmares she wished to forget. Yet, even now, love surged through her. If one flicker of light could pierce this shadowy kingdom, maybe, just maybe, she could find her daughter. Let her go. She is mine. The words rang out, stronger than before, echoing off the crumbling gravestones, echoing the love she felt for Sophie. Join us. The shadows hissed, their voices a symphony of despair. You can never escape. Never, never. Carla retorted, feeling the ground tremble beneath her. Each denial was a crack in the darkness, each steadfast declaration forged a path. I won't lose her. I will fight. Together, we will break this curse. With a fierce determination, she reached into the depths of her heart, envisioning Sophie a child's laughter, the warmth of her tiny hand in hers, the shared moments of love. Carla concentrated all of her energy on that love, channeling it as a weapon against the creeping dread. Light poured from her heart, bright and pure, pushing against the dark. The shadows recoiled, twisting in agony, their faces contorting. No. The light, it burns. Driven by an unfathomable connection to Sophie, Carla took a step forward, unwilling to relent. The light pulsated around her, fueled by unwavering maternal instinct, flooding the graveyard with hope, and then Sophie's voice broke through the tumult, clear and piercing. Mom! Help me! Carla's heart raced at the sound. Through the chaos, she spotted her daughter standing amidst the darkness, her eyes wide with terror but glimmering with an unyielding spark. Hold on, Sophie. I'm coming. Carla screamed. She pushed through the pull of the shadows, forcing herself to advance despite the icy fingers clawing at her soul. Leave her. She cried, each step a testament to her fierce love. The children emerged from the shadows, faces twisted in a haunting display of anguish. Join us. We can be free together. They begged, their voices echoing as they reached out with skeletal hands. Freedom. At what cost? Carla shouted, resolute. You have forgotten how to love. I refuse to let your darkness consume me or my daughter. In one decisive act of defiance, she opened her arms wide, drawing the light nearer, a blinding explosion of warmth and love to clash against the dark. The shadows screamed, their terrible shrieks like a funeral dirge, vibrating through the ground, threatening to pull her under once more. Give me my daughter. Carla roared, her spirit ignited, only for it to flicker as the shadows began to converge around Sophie, dragging her toward the churning abyss. Mom! Sophie screamed, her voice splintering the air, twisting Carla's heart like a vice. Carla's world narrowed down to one single thought: you cannot have her. She braced herself, pushing all of her will against the tide of shadows flowing around her. But would it be enough? How far could love stretch before it broke? As the darkness thickened, twisting once more, Carla felt that the shadows were shifting. They were becoming something more powerful, evolving to test her resolve. Just then, a gang of laughter echoed, a sinister harmony that left her breathless. And in that moment of uncertain hope, the ground groaned. What if this fight was just the beginning and something far worse awaited her? What if she had miscalculated the stakes? Carla took a deep breath, knowing this was only the beginning of their dark tale. The shadows recoiled, their grotesque forms flickering under the intense light Carla had summoned. It felt as if her very soul was igniting, sending shockwaves of warmth through the cold graveyard. But she could sense them regrouping. The laughter echoed through the darkness again, mocking her pain, sending a chill racing down her spine. Take her hand. The whispers hissed, wrapping around her mind like a snake. Embrace the shadows, Carla. Let them into your heart. No. She screamed, her voice raw and desperate. I will not join you. Sophie's terrified face was still lost among the writhing entities, and with each moment spent fighting, the darkness tightened around her thick, choking, suffocating. The pulse of light flickered precariously, the shadows feeding on Carla's doubts, then she stumbled. A wave of fatigue crashed over her. The shadows twisted, creeping closer, sensing her weakening resolve. She is ours, Carla. You cannot fight this. Join us, and you will know true freedom. Freedom at what price? She could barely keep her thoughts straight as they bled into each other. Despair began clawing at her heart, whispering doubts she tried to silence. What if she couldn't reach Sophie? What if her love wasn't enough? A shadow with a face like a forgotten memory began to form before her. It leaned in close, its breath cold and damp against her skin. You will lose her. The darkness will consume you both. Get away from me. Carla roared, her voice barely rising above the howls of anguish surrounding her. The laughter morphed into a wailing symphony of lost souls, trapped forever in this cursed realm. She could see them now, pale, featureless faces, longing eyes, skeletal hands reaching out to her. They wanted to pull her into their torment. Suddenly, amidst the crowd, a flash of red caught her attention. Sophie's dress torn and muddied, but undeniably hers stood stark against the shadows. It galvanized Carla, igniting fury in her heart once again. Stand strong, Sophie. Carla yelled, forcing her focus back to her daughter. I'm coming for you. With a deep breath, she steeled herself. She had to try again, gather the light, reclaim the love that fought against the dark. You will not take my daughter. The shadows shrieked, thrashing violently. The darkness felt alive, and with each cavernous scream, the weight of it pressed down harder. Carla conjured memories of Sophie, her laughter, her bright smile. In that moment, she remembered the gentle touch of Sophie's hand in hers, the way her little heart had beat as they danced in the kitchen. Together. Carla screamed into the abyss. The darkness pulsed, recoiling from her words, and she felt something shift in the air. Threads of light began weaving, pulling through the shadows like beads of dew against a spider's web. She thrust her hand toward the light, embracing it fiercely as it surged all around her. Mom! Sophie cried out again. Her voice carried a new strength, resonating with Carla's heart. If only she could close that distance. If only the light were strong enough. As the light intensified, shadows melted away momentarily, revealing glimpses of Sophie struggling at their epicenter. Then, with each flicker from her mother's heart, the darkness began to convulse, writhing in pain. The cries escalated, drowning out everything else in a tumultuous wave of fear and rage, but as the shadows flickered again, something new emerged from the depths. A dark figure, bigger, more sinister, casting a shadow over the entire graveyard, loomed above Carla and Sophie, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Is it fear or freedom it offers? One thought coursed through Carla's mind: what if confronting this creature was their only hope? As she stood on the precipice, ready to face what lay within, a horrifying realization washed over her. What if the darkness took her as it had taken so many before? With Sophie's hand still just out of reach, the figure took a step forward, ushering in an oncoming dread. Could Carla muster the strength for one final stand? Would the light be enough against an ancient evil? The terrifying figure loomed, its shape shifting with grotesque fluidity. Shadows writhed around it, weaving their way through the darkness like serpents seeking prey. Carla could feel the ground shudder beneath her feet, as if the earth itself cowered away from this entity. Do not resist, a voice echoed from the creature, deep and resonant, a chilling lure. You'll only bring pain. Join us, let go of the light. Carla's breaths quickened. The concept of surrender felt like poison, curling around her heart. Memories of Sophie's laughter devoured her fear, but they flickered like the waning light. Mom, please. Sophie's voice cracked. It clawed at Carla's resolve, tugging her closer. But the darkness had a grip around her daughter, an unyielding hold that sent waves of terror crashing through Carla's chest. Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming. Carla's voice trembled, rallying every bit of strength she had left. The light pulsing around her was a fragment of her fierce love, and she would not let it falter, but the shadows moved, their cold tendrils snaking toward Sophie, leaving Carla torn. She felt like she was being pulled in two directions, fight for her daughter or succumb to the deceitful call of the entity. The ground trembled with its laughter, filled with the echoes of those who had been consumed. Leave her alone. The words were raw, born of desperation and rage. A fleeting pulse of light refracted through the darkness, illuminating the path between them for a heartbeat. It was then that Carla saw something within the depths of the darkness, a flicker of movement behind the horror that towered over her. It was Sophie, her tiny frame bound but fighting. The flickering threads of light danced around her like fireflies, pushing the darkness back if only for a moment. Mom! Sophie screamed again, her eyes wide with panic as she squirmed against the shadows. Please! The sinister entity loomed closer, a wave of cold radiating off its dark form. You're fighting a losing struggle, Carla. You cannot save her. Its voice slithered through her mind, wrapping like chains around her hopes. No. She gasped, pulling strength from the new light. Rousing her love for Sophie, she felt it surge from her chest, pooling into her hands. She cried out, "We will not be claimed by you." With newfound resolve, Carla directed the light towards Sophie, focusing every ounce of love and defiance into a beam stronger than before. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as the light touched them, flickering life into the still night air, choosing warmth over the icy embrace of despair. Together. You have to fight, Sophie. As the light grew, so did her daughter's spirit, filling the air between them with incandescent hope. But the entity's rage exploded into a chaos of darkness, snatching at Carla's light with desperate claws, growing larger as it feasted on despair. The ground beneath them shuddered violently, threatening to split apart. I will take both of you, it growled, a sinister promise. With a fierce scream, Carla poured everything she had into the light, feeling something within her shift. She realized this battle was not merely against the shadows for Sophie's sake, it was a fight for her very soul. Run! She shouted, though uncertainty gnawed at her heart. Was it too late for either of them? But would running mean abandoning Sophie to the dark? The connection between them flared, the thread of their love sparking and brightening in defiance. Sophie's fragile voice whispered back through the tumult. I want to let go, Mom. The shadows surged closer, and everything froze in that dreadful moment. Could Carla protect Sophie from this dark beast? And what would she lose in the process? As uncertainty gripped her tighter than any shadow, one thing became painfully clear: the last stand was only beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. The darkness clawed at Carla, tightening its grip like a vice around her chest. She could feel the oppressive weight of it pressing down, threatening to crush her spirit. The shadows howled as they lashed out, igniting the air with a chilling chill that seeped into her bones. Fight, Carla. Don't let it win. She screamed inwardly, desperately searching her mind for a way forward. The entity twisted and contorted, trillions of dark streams seeping from its form, spiraling toward Sophie. Each tendril seemed to whisper secrets of fear and regret, promises of surrender that slid past Carla's defenses. They painted pictures of joy unfulfilled, of moments lost to the abyss, shadows that flickered in the corners of memory. But Carla shook her head violently, banishing the thoughts. I won't fall for your lies. Sophie's cries pierced the frigid air, a lifeline tossed in turbulent waters. I can see you, Mom. I see the light. Hope bloomed in Carla's heart, and her trembling fingers ignited with passion once more. If Sophie could see the glow, it meant there was a chance, a way to navigate through the dark. Hold on, Sophie. Keep fighting. Carla focused her mind, casting every ounce of love into the light that swirled around her. She felt it respond, pulsing as if her very heartbeat synchronized with its rhythm. It arched forward, bright and desperate, pushing against the creeping dark. The entity shrieked, a sound of raw anger that sent chills racing up Carla's spine. Its form twisted into a shape both horrific and colossal, a monster that surged toward Sophie, tendrils thrashing in a violent dance. You cannot win. Your love is weakness. It hissed, the air thick with malice. No. My love is my strength. Carla shouted defiantly, thrusting her hands forward as beams of light shot from her fingertips. Each surge ignited the ground beneath her, illuminating the surrounding darkness with vibrant agony. The light burrowed into the shadows, tearing at their insidious grip. Mom, make it stop. Sophie cried, terror lacing her words as the shadows curled around her. In that moment, time slowed, each heartbeat echoing with dreadful finality. The flicker of Sophie's spirit dimmed, and Carla's hope battled despair in a tempest of terror. No. She was reaching the edge of her limits, but she couldn't give up. The love she felt for her daughter was worth everything. Fight, Sophie. Remember the joy. Remember our family. As if propelled by Carla's sheer will, the light surged again, pushing against the waves of darkness wrapped around Sophie. The shadows hissed violently, but with each pulse of warmth, they retreated, slithering back from the edge of fear. The vicious entity screeched, its form wavering in uncertain terror. It was losing power, but its fury exploded, desperate to reclaim its place. This is not over. You will both belong to me. Reality twisted as shadows crashed around them, an impenetrable wave threatening to swallow everything in its path. Air crackled with tension, and darkness thundered. Mom! The fear in Sophie's voice rang clear, pulling Carla from her focus. A bright moment triggered something deep within. No. Carla realized now, they needed to break the bond between darkness and despair. It was suffering that fed the shadows. Let go of your fear, Sophie. Let it burn away. Illuminate your heart. Carla shouted as the light intensified, illuminating every crevice of the surrounding chaos. But as Sophie's unique spark ignited the glimmering tendrils of hope, another deep rumble fractured the air. The ground quaked, warning of something worse still lurking beneath this dreadful confrontation. What horrible truth lay within this shadowy void? Would their defiance be enough? Carla felt despair clawing back again, battling fiercely, yet she held the light to her chest, refusing to let fear in. For as long as they fought, there was a flicker of possibility. In that suffocating chaos, she steeled herself, preparing for whatever came next, hoping that love could outshine the encroaching darkness, one last time. The air trembled around Carla as the ground beneath her heaved violently, loosening the very fabric of reality. She felt the earth break apart, a dark chasm opening, a gaping mouth ready to devour them whole. Shadows writhed and whispered, thick as smoke, and the light pulsed fiercely in her grasp, desperate for release. Mom! I can't hold on. Sophie's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and desperate. Carla felt the panic shoot through her like ice. Fight! Remember the good times. Remember us. Carla's words rushed out, raw with urgency. Beneath the terrifying cacophony, a glimmer of truth pierced the shadows. For every dark memory they invoked, a brighter one could drown it out. Buried deep in their shared history lay laughter, warmth, and love. Carla began to chant, each word a lifeline thrown into the roiling sea of despair. Picnics in the sun, swimming in the lake at Grandma's, making pie together. Sophie, caught in the tendrils of shadows, whimpered. I can't see them, Mom. I can't see anything. With every memory Carla summoned, a flicker of warmth ignited the tendrils that ensnared Sophie. The shadows writhed, shrieking in protest as light pushed back, peeling away layers of darkness. Hope surged, but the ground quaked again, more violently this time, as if something ancient was awakening beneath their feet. No. Get back. The realization hit Carla with a suffocating urgency. The malevolence was not just the entity before them, it was also this place, a cemetery hollowed by centuries of loss and sorrow. The energy seeping from it was potent, feeding the darkness. The cries grew louder, reverberating around them, echoing the pain of those buried under layers of earth. Their voices, twisted and mournful, crawled beneath Carla's skin, clinging to her. Join us, the seduction laced with deep sorrow was unnerving. Fight it, Carla. She urged herself, wiping the sweat from her brow. The tendrils coiled tighter, squeezing around Sophie's small body, threatening to snuff out the light. Your love can break this. Remember what matters. Drawing a deep breath, Carla closed her eyes and summoned everything she knew about her daughter. The golden laughter on a lazy summer evening, the impish grin that spread across Sophie's face when she succeeded at something new, the warmth of bedtime stories filled with adventure. These memories formed a radiant fortress around them, granting her the power to stand firm against the entity's wrath. Let go of your fear. You are not alone. She shouted, igniting the light within her, setting it ablaze even further. With a fierce determination, she wove the memories together, their essence painting vibrant streaks of color against the black canvas of their confinement. The shadows screamed, an agony echoed through the buried soil, making the world tremble. The dark entity writhed in frustration, trying to lash out, but every pulse of light chipped away at its cold grasp. It was desperate, raging against the warmth that threatened to dissolve it. Mom! I can feel you. I can feel the love. Sophie gasped, a hint of strength igniting in her voice. As the light enveloped her, the shadows began to retreat, uncoiling from Sophie's limbs, but just as victory tasted sweet and hopeful, a final, thunderous roar erupted. More shadows surged up, breaking through the cracks of the earth like a rising tide, vengeful and sharp. They were thicker than before, potent with anger and anguish. Something deep beneath the surface was being awakened, something that had been hushed for far too long. Carla felt the surge of its malevolent presence, an ancient power darkening the very air they breathed. Get back! She screamed, pulling Sophie closer, feeling her heart race wildly against her chest as the shadows closed in once again. What have we unleashed? As they stood on the precipice, surrounded by vengeful darkness, hope flickered like a dying ember against the tempest of despair. The shadows loomed closer, piercing echoes of tormented spirits intertwining with their presence. The light flickered, but would it be enough to hold back the wrath that awaited them? What malevolence lurked beneath the surface, waiting to consume them both? Would love's light shine through, or were they about to plunge into the darkest depths? The air crackled with an electric tension as Carla clutched her daughter's hand with desperate strength. The shadows writhed like a storm, threatening to engulf them. The darkness surged, but Carla felt a flicker of hope within. We aren't lost yet. She shouted, summoning every ounce of love and courage she had for Sophie. Together. Sophie screamed, her voice filled with innocent determination. The shadows pulsed violently with rage, yet the spark of their bond pushed forcefully against the dark. Lines of light shot from Carla's heart, connecting to beacons of brighter memories, illuminating the cold earth and pushing back on despair, but the shadows didn't shrink easily. You're outnumbered, Carla, the dark entity hissed, its cold breath enveloping them like thick fog. The tortured souls will claim you, both of you. Carla gritted her teeth, her resolve cemented. No. You will not take us. As she focused on the warmth of Sophie's small hand in hers, radiant memories flooded her mind, laughing together on summer days, the simple joy of baking pies, clapping as Sophie learned to ride a bike. Those flashes of love etched in her heart became beacons guiding her through the tempest. Feel the love. She shouted again. Her voice echoed across the graveyard, and the shadows seemed to falter, twining like vines that recoiled from a fiery blaze. Mom, I can feel it. Sophie cried, her eyes lighting up as if they too were casting light into the void. The tendrils around her loosened, curling away like smoke beneath the sun's warmth. But just as Carla basked in that moment, the shadows slapped back with vicious strength, trying to swallow them whole. Dare to defy us? The dark entity roared, anger vibrating through the ground beneath them. You'll pay dearly. Gathering her strength, Carla pressed on, heart racing, the warmth of her determination resonating with every beat. Our love cannot be severed by your darkness. You can't erase us. She drew the light forth, letting it pulse with her emotions and wrap around Sophie like a protective cocoon. With each memory she conjured, each dream of a bright future they shared, the shadows hissed and writhed. No. The light, they screamed, thrashing backward as if scorched, the ground shook violently beneath their feet as ancient anger roared from the depths of the cemetery. Something is awakening. Sophie gasped, dread washing over her face, but Carla held tight. Stay with me, Sophie. We are stronger. Just then, the darkness convulsed and rippled like disturbed water, revealing what lay below. They could see other souls trapped, hovering just out of reach. Their eyes vacant, filled with pleading hope and weary despair. Free us. Free us. They murmured, their voices a haunting symphony of sorrow. How many? Carla choked, seeing the faces, feeling their suffering. They're counting on us, Sophie. Let us do it together. Sophie shouted with fierce spirit, her tiny frame glowing brightly as she stood tall against the shadows. Their hands clasped tighter than before, they become a beacon strong enough to pierce the veil of darkness. The shadows recoiled again, a collective growl echoed through the cemetery. You will all suffer for this insubordination. The entity writhed, attempting to overpower them with a horrific wave, but Carla's light surged forth, a defiant wave of brightness that struck out against the encroaching void. Now! Carla cried, channeling all their love, their laughter, their promises into one radiant burst of light. It erupted from her chest, shooting into the haunted sky with unstoppable force. The shadows shrieked and splintered, their forms splitting apart beneath the unyielding shine. Carla squeezed Sophie's hand tighter as they stepped toward the brilliance, which rippled through the haunted cemetery, cleansing the air of despair. The faces of the trapped souls lit up with renewed hope. Together. Resonated through the graveyard, as they charged forth, fusing their warmth, breaking the dark curse isolating those lost. Their light washed over the tombstones, revealing names long forgotten. Those left behind were finally given a path, unity through love. In an explosion of luminescence, the shadows twisted into vapor, scattering like whispers in the wind. The air sparkled with energy, bursting with life as the chains binding the lost souls dissolved into thin air. A moment of profound stillness enveloped them as the cemetery transformed. Sunlight broke through the clouds, bathing everything in golden hues. All that remained was the warm grip of each other's hands. Did we win? Sophie asked, her eyes wide with wonder and relief. Carla smiled, tears of joy streaking down her cheeks. Yes, sweetheart, we did. As the specters of the lost souls drifted into the light, a wave of peace washed over the landscape, soothing the restless ground that had once been so filled with anguish. The horrors of the darkness diminished and melted into memory. They stepped back from the edge of the cursed cemetery, holding tightly to one another. We did it together. Our love conquered the shadows, Carla murmured, wrapping her arms around Sophie, pulling her close and feeling the warmth of her life, her spirit. They turned to leave the cemetery behind, walking firmly towards the future, knowing they had broken the curse together, forever bound by the light they had summoned through love. But Carla knew this tale would leave its mark. One of caution, of bravery, of love's power, a story of struggle and hope thrumming within every heartbeat. Remember this, Sophie. No darkness can hold us down. We fight for each other, always, Carla vowed, feeling lighter as they walked away. Stepping into the sun.as they disappeared into the brightening horizon. Whispers of their final battle lingered, echoing throughout the land like a haunting melody of survival. A reminder for all who dared to love fiercely, to fight for the light. And there, in the quiet of the cemetery, a newfound peace settled where anguish once thrived, a testament to the courage of a mother's heart. But now, it is time for you. You need to subscribe immediately, so you don't miss future exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread these incredible tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.